Oh. Huh?
Don't provoke me.
The heavens tore open above Sarpedon Prime, a wound in reality that bled crimson light across the ash plains where the 117th Cadian Regiment made their final stand. Commissar Jarek Vaughn watched through magnoculars as the phenomenon split wider, his weathered face illuminated by its unnatural glow. 3 days' relentless artillery had reduced the Astra Militarum defensive line to scattered craters and makeshift barricades, the regiment's strength whittled to barely 800 souls. Movement in the anomaly, sir, voxed Lieutenant Karras, her voice crackling with static. Something is coming through. Vaughn lowered his magnoculars, drawing his bolt pistol in a practiced motion. 20 years service to the God Emperor had taught him that anything emerging from such a could only herald death. All batteries, target that breach. Fire on my mark. Basilisk artillery pieces adjusted their trajectory with mechanical precision. Across the line, guardsmen chambered rounds in their las guns, hands steady despite the horror unfolding above. Faith in the Emperor would sustain them, faith always had. The tear contracted suddenly, as if expelling something with tremendous force. A blinding flash erupted, followed by a shockwave that knocked men from their feet and toppled a nearby sentinel walker. When Vaughn regained his senses, he saw a single figure descending slowly toward the battlefield, wreathed in blue-white energy that illuminated the darkness like a small sundae. "What throne-damned warpcraft is this?" he whispered. The figure touched down 100 meters from the Imperial line, the strange aura fading to reveal a man of compact but powerful build. He wore unusual blue armor that left his arms exposed, with white gloves and boots unlike any Imperial pattern. His black hair rose upward in a flame-like crest, and his face bore the sharp, aristocratic features of one accustomed to command. The stranger surveyed the devastation around him with narrowed eyes. "Basilisk's fire," Vaughn ordered. 3 Earthshaker rounds screamed across the sky, converging on the intruder with pinpoint act. Exploded up a wall of dirt and that obscured Vaughn's vision. For a moment, silence fell across the battlefield. The dust cleared. The stranger stood untouched. Not a mark on his pristine armor, not a single step displaced from his original position. His eyes found Vaughn's across the battlefield, dark and calculating. "Is this the best this realm has to offer?" His voice carried effortlessly across the distance, filled with proud disdain. "I am Vegeta, Prince of all Saiyans. Your pathetic weapons cannot harm me." Vaughn raised his bolt pistol. "In the name of the God Emperor, identify yourself, Xenos." "God Emperor?" Vegeta smirked, crossing his arms. "Another would-be deity. I have killed gods before." The air around him began to shimmer with heat. Tiny pebbles rose from the ground, as if gravity itself was bending to his will. A blue glow encompassed his form once more, growing in intensity until it hurt to look directly at him. "All units, open fire," Vaughn commanded, squeezing the trigger of his own weapon. 1,000 lasgun beams converged on Vegeta simultaneously, joined by heavy bolter fire from the remaining Chimera transports. The combined firepower would have reduced a space marine to bloody fragments, but the energy simply rippled across an invisible barrier surrounding the Saiyan. "Pitiful," Vegeta said, uncrossing his arms. "Let me show you true power." He raised one gloved hand, palm outward. A sphere of brilliant energy coalesced before it, growing from the size of a fist to that of a Lehman Russ tank in seconds. The air crackled with ozone and static. "Take cover." Vaughn screamed into the Vox. Vegeta thrust his arm forward. "Gallic gun." A purple energy erupted from his palm, wider than 3 men standing shoulder to shoulder. It carved through the Imperial line like a godly blade. Artillery pieces, all reduced to nothing in an instant. The beam continued beyond the battlefield, striking a distant mountain and obliterating its peak in a
Vegeta enters Warhammer 40K. Vegeta enters Warhammer 40K.
eine Geschichte. Pippankehr.
The heavens tore open above Sarpedon Prime, a wound illuminated, followed by a shockwave that knocked men from their feet and toppled a near Quest immediate Astartes intervention. As the surviving smirked, crossing his arms. Another would-be deity. I have killed gods before. The air around him began to shimmer with heat. Tiny pebbles rose from the ground as if gravity itself was bending to his will. A blue glow encompassed his form once more, growing in intensity until it hurt to look directly at him. All units, open fire, Vaughn commanded, squeezing the trigger of his own weapon. 1,000 lasgun beams converged on Vegeta simultaneously, joined by heavy bolter fire from the remaining Chimera transports. The combined firepower would have reduced a space marine to bloody fragments, but the energy simply rippled across an invisible barrier surrounding the Saiyan. Pitiful, Vegeta said, uncrossing his arms. Let me show you true power. He raised one gloved hand, palm outward. A sphere of brilliant energy coalesced before it, growing from the size of a fist to that of a Lehman Russ tank in seconds. The air crackled with ozone and static. Take cover. Vaughn screamed into the Vox. Vegeta thrust his arm forward. Gallic gun. A beam of purple energy erupted from his palm, wider than 3 men standing shoulder to shoulder. It carved through the Imperial line like a godly blade, vaporizing everything in its path. Guardsmen, tanks, artillery pieces, all reduced to nothing in an instant. The beam continued beyond the battlefield, striking a distant mountain and obliterating its peak in a spectacular explosion. Vaughn pulled himself from the rubble, ears ringing from the blast. Half the regiment was gone, simply erased from existence. The remaining guardsmen emerged from cover, faces ashen with shock. The Emperor protects. Vaughn muttered reflexively, though doubt gnawed at him for the first time in decades. No force he had ever encountered possessed such raw destructive potential. Not the Orcs, not even the traitor legions. Vegeta walked forward, each step leaving a small crater in the earth, as if his very presence was too much for this world to bear. I seek worthy opponents, the Saiyan announced. This galaxy teems with energy signatures. Some rival even my own. His eyes narrowed. Direct me to these warriors, and I may spare what remains of your pathetic forces. Lieutenant Karras helped Vaughn to his feet, blood streaming from a gash on her forehead. Sir, we need to fall back. Nothing in our arsenal can touch him. Vaughn nodded grimly. Sound the retreat. Get a Vox to command. Tell them. He paused, watching Vegeta approach with the confident stride of an apex predator. Tell them we face a threat beyond classification. Request immediate Astartes intervention. As the surviving guardsmen began their withdrawal, Vegeta suddenly tensed, looking skyward. More of your reinforcements? He asked, a hint of eagerness in his voice. Vaughn followed his gaze and felt his blood run cold. Green drop pods were screaming through the atmosphere, leaving trails of crude smoke in their wake. The distinct silhouette of Orc rocks filled the sky, drawn to the planet by the promise of battle. Not ours, Vaughn said grimly. Something far worse. Vegeta smiled, a predatory expression that sent shivers down the Commissar's spine. Good. Perhaps they will provide a better challenge than your soldiers. The first rock crashed into the plains 3 kilometers away, sending tremors through the ground. Within minutes, the unmistakable sound of Orc war cries filled the air, punctuated by the crude rattle of their guns. Wah! The collective roar of thousands of greenskins echoed across the battlefield. Vegeta's aura flared again, his power rising visibly. Let them come, he said. All of them. Commissar Vaughn retreated with his surviving troops, watching as the Saiyan Prince stood alone against the approaching green tide. Whatever this being was, Emperor help any who stood in his path. And Emperor protect humanity if he could not be stopped. The Orcs swarmed across the ash plains in a green avalanche, thousands strong and growing by the minute as more rocks crashed into Sarpedon Prime's surface. Their crude vehicles kicked up clouds of dust, and their collective bellowing formed a wall of sound that preceded their advance. At their center rode war boss Grimtooth, a mountain of muscle and scrap metal atop a battle wagon bristling with improvised weapons. Vegeta watched their approach with arms crossed, unmoving as the horde drew closer. Their brutal simplicity reminded him of the lower-class Saiyans he had once commanded, though these creatures lacked even the basic discipline of his former subordinates. The first wave of Orc boys charged ahead of the main force, eager for glory. 50 greenskins, armed with crude choppers and sluggers, bellowing war cries as they closed the distance. "You lot gonna get crumped good," the lead Orc shouted, raising an axe nearly as large as himself. Wah! Vegeta's expression remained impassive. When the Orc was 5 paces away, he simply extended one hand and released a controlled burst of ki energy. The blast tore through the entire front line of greenskins, reducing them to scattered fragments of meat and metal. The second wave hesitated for only a moment before charging with even greater fervor, drawn to the display of power. This time, hundreds came at once, firing their weapons wildly. Crude bullets and energy blasts peppered the area around Vegeta, kicking up dirt but finding no purchase against his ki-reinforced defenses. He launched himself forward, moving so quickly that he became a blur to the Orc perception. His fist connected with the first greenskin's chest, punching clean through armor, flesh, and bone before emerging from its back. Without pausing, Vegeta tore sideways, ripping the Orc in half. He spun in the same motion, leg extended in a roundhouse kick that decapitated 3 more greenskins with a single sweep. Blood sprayed across his white gloves and boots, the only evidence that he was expending any effort at all. "Is this all?" he called out, voice cutting through the din of battle. "Is there not one among you who can test my strength?" An Orc Nob pushed to the front, standing a full head taller than his brethren. He carried a massive power claw that crackled with unstable energy. "I's gonna rip your arms off, little Humie," the Nob roared, charging forward with surprising speed for his bulk. Vegeta smiled thinly, waiting until the last possible moment before sidestepping the attack. The power claw swept through empty air as Vegeta grabbed the Nob's extended arm. With a casual twist, he tore the limb free at the shoulder, green blood gushing from the wound. The Nob howled in pain and rage, only to be silenced as Vegeta drove the severed limb through its owner's chest like a spear. "Disappointing," Vegeta said, tossing the corpse aside. "I had expected more from creatures bred for war." The main Orc force had arrived now, surrounding Vegeta in a sea of green. Warboss Grimtooth pushed his way to the front, his massive form dwarfing even the largest knobs. Cybernetic enhancements protruded from his flesh, and a force field generator hummed on his back. His red eyes fixed on Vegeta with uncharacteristic calculation for an Orc. "You," Grimtooth growled, voice like grinding metal. "You fight good, kill many boys, but Grimtooth not just any Orc." The warboss thumped his chest. "Grimtooth killed 3 space marines with bare hands." Grimtooth ate Commissar Hart while still beating. Vegeta raised an eyebrow. "Should I be impressed?" The warboss roared with laughter. "You strong. Maybe strongest I ever seen." He pointed a massive metal-clad finger at Vegeta. "Join Wa. Be my Nob. We crump all Humies together. Join you?" Vegeta's voice dropped dangerously. "Prince Vegeta serves no one. Least of all a primitive creature like you." Grimtooth's expression darkened. "Then you die here." The warboss signaled, and dozens of Orc gunners opened fire simultaneously. Looted heavy weapons, crude plasma cannons, and rocket launchers unleashed a barrage that would have flattened an Imperial bunker complex. Vegeta's aura flared bright blue as he rocketed upward, the bombardment cratering the ground where he had stood. From the air, he looked down at the gathered Orc forces, now numbering in the tens of thousands. For the first time, a smile of genuine pleasure crossed his face. "At last, an opportunity to demonstrate my full power," he said, raising both hands above his head. Energy gathered between his palms, condensing into a sphere of blinding white light. Big Bang attack. The energy sphere shot downward, expanding as it traveled. When it struck the center of the orc horde, it detonated with force enough to shake the entire continent. A dome of pure energy expanded outward, vaporizing everything it touched. Orcs, vehicles, weapons, all were reduced to their component atoms in an instant. When the light faded, a crater 2 kilometers wide had replaced the heart of the Wa. The edges were glassed by the heat of the explosion, steam rising from the vitrified soil. Thousands of orcs had been erased in a single attack, yet the Wa continued. From the periphery of the blast zone, surviving orcs watched with awe, rather than fear. Their crude minds processed what they had witnessed, not as a defeat, but as a revelation. Their voices rose in a new chant, one that spread through the surviving greenskins with the speed of wildfire. War boss, strongest war boss. Vegeta descended to the edge of the crater, where Grimtooth had somehow survived, his force field generator a melted ruin on his back, half his body charred beyond recognition. The wounded war boss crawled toward Vegeta, not in attack but in supplication. You, strongest, Grimtooth wheezed through burned lungs. You true war boss. All orcs follow you now. The surviving greenskins were approaching cautiously, weapons lowered, heads bowed in the closest thing to reverence an orc could manage. Tens of thousands of them, acknowledging Vegeta as their leader. Vegeta looked at the kneeling orcs with contempt. I have no interest in leading a rabble of weaklings. Not weaklings, Grimtooth insisted, gesturing to the horde with his remaining arm. Orcs get stronger fighting stronger enemies. You make orcs stronger. Make biggest warg ever. Something in the war boss's words caught Vegeta's attention. The concept was familiar, reminiscent of the Saiyan biology that allowed him to grow stronger after each battle. Perhaps these creatures were more interesting than he had initially thought. Before he could respond, the distant thunder of drop pods broke the moment. Imperial reinforcements were arriving, the silhouettes of their transport craft distinct from the crude orc vessels. Space Marines, Grimtooth said, following Vegeta's gaze. Strongest humies, good fight. Vegeta considered the situation. Leading an army had never been his goal, but these orcs could prove useful in locating worthy opponents in this strange new universe. And if these Space Marines were truly the mightiest warriors this galaxy had to offer, he would need to face them eventually. Very well, Vegeta said, turning back to Grimtooth. I will lead you, Wa, for now. But understand this, I am not one of you. I am a Saiyan prince, and you will address me as such. Grimtooth nodded eagerly, then turned to the assembled orcs. Listen up, Yagits. This is Prince Vegeta, strongest warrior, new war boss. We follow him to biggest fights. Biggest warg ever. The greenskins erupted in cheers, raising their weapons in salute to their new leader. Warg, Vegeta, Warg, Vegeta. Vegeta watched the display with mingled disgust and satisfaction. These creatures were beneath him, but their reverence was not undeserved. And if they could lead him to worthy opponents, perhaps even to a way back to his own universe, he would tolerate their presence. He turned toward the approaching Imperial forces, a predatory smile spreading across his face. This strange new galaxy had much to offer a warrior prince in search of battle, and battle was the one constant across all universes that Vegeta understood perfectly. Brother Captain Tiberius of the Ultramarines, 2nd Company, stood in the command deck of the strike cruiser, Oath of Moment, watching the tactical hololith with growing concern. The display showed the surface of Sarpedon Prime, where a massive energy signature had been detected hours earlier. Now, the scan revealed a crater where the 117th Cadian Regiment had made their stand, and an enormous concentration of orc forces gathering to the north. The situation is unprecedented, my lord, reported Techmarine Dracos, his mechadendrites dancing over the controls of the augury array. The energy discharge we detected exceeds anything in our records. It does not match known patterns of warp manifestation, Necron technology, or Eldari weaponry. What of the Cadians? Tiberius asked. Approximately 30% survived, retreating to the capital hive, Dracos replied. Their commissar reports encountering a humanoid Xenos of extreme power. Shortly afterward, the Orcs arrived. According to the latest Auspex readings, the Orc horde now appears to be organizing around the energy signature. Chaplain Octavius stepped forward, his skull helm turning toward the display. The timing cannot be coincidence. The appearance of this Xenos, followed immediately by an Orc invasion. The Emperor's hand guides us to this threat before it can spread. Tiberius nodded gravely. Ready the drop pods. First and third tactical squads will establish a perimeter. Second squad and the Devastators will provide fire support. Assault squad will remain in reserve until we assess the threat. And
Du willst 2 Jahre haarfrei sein? Entdecke Brownsmart IPL für perfekte Ergebnisse wie mit dem Laser. Stopp das Haarwachstum durch sanfte Lichtimpulse. So hast du mehr Zeit für dich. Brownsmart IPL für 2 Jahre glatte Haut.
Showtime. Toni hat gesagt, wir müssen uns beeilen. Die Ware ist heiß.
a threat. And you, brother captain? Octavius asked. Tiberius checked the power level on his plasma pistol. I will lead the vanguard personally. Whatever this Xenos is, it must be confronted with the Emperor's fury. Within minutes, the Ultramarine strike force was loaded into drop pods and launched toward the surface. Tiberius felt the familiar sensation of acceleration as his pod tore through Sarpedon's atmosphere, the metal shell heating to near melting around him. 5 veteran battle brothers stood with him, each one a warrior with centuries of combat experience. Brotherhood of the Blade, Tiberius intoned. Loyalty until death. His brothers responded in unison. The drop pod crashed into the ash plains 15 kilometers from the Orc position, retro thrusters firing at the last second to prevent catastrophic impact. The doors blew outward, and the Ultramarines deployed in perfect formation, bolters at the ready. All across the landing zone, other pods disgorged their lethal cargo. 50 Space Marines, the finest warriors of the Imperium, arranged themselves in battle formation. The blue of their armor stood in stark contrast to the gray wasteland around them. Forward, brothers, Tiberius commanded, for Ultramar and the Emperor. The Space Marines advanced in disciplined units, their heavy ceramite boots leaving distinct impressions in the ash. Devastator squads took positions on elevated terrain, heavy weapons tracking for targets. Assault Marines kept pace just behind the tactical squads, jump packs primed for rapid engagement. As they crested a ridge, they saw the Orc encampment spread across the plains below. Thousands of greenskins were gathered, but instead of the typical chaotic sprawl of an Orc warband, they appeared organized in concentric rings around a central point. Crude towers had been hastily erected, each flying a new banner, a stylized symbol that resembled neither Orc glyphs nor any known Xenos iconography. Auspex readings confirm the energy signature is at the center of the formation, Dracos reported. It appears dormant for now, but still registering at dangerous levels. The Orcs have not noticed our arrival, observed Sergeant Atreus of the 1st Squad. Unusual for greenskins. They appear focused inward, Octavius said, almost as if in worship. Tiberius raised his hand, signaling the force to halt. Brother Dracos, Vox intercept. Let us hear what passes among the greenskins. The Tech Marine adjusted his equipment, filtering through the cacophony of Orc communications until coherent phrases emerged through the squad's Vox units. Prince Vegeta, strongest ever. Gonna show us real fighting. Crush all enemies. Vegeta, Tiberius repeated. The name, the Commissar reported. It appears the Xenos has somehow taken control of the Orc horde. Impossible, Sergeant Atreus protested. Orcs follow only strength. No Xenos has ever united them so completely. Yet the evidence is before us, Chaplain Octavius said grimly. A Xenos capable of both devastating firepower and subverting an entire war. This threat must be eliminated with extreme prejudice. Tiberius nodded. Devastator Squad, Target the center of the formation. Brother Dracos, signal the strike cruiser for orbital bombardment on these coordinates. We will draw out this Prince Vegeta and end his threat before it can spread beyond this world. Bombardment lock acquired, Dracos confirmed after a moment. Firing solution in 30 seconds. Tiberius raised his plasma pistol. All units, prepare to engage. The Emperor protects. High above, the Oath of Moment aligned its port lance batteries. Energy built within the massive weapons, focusing into coherent beams that streaked toward the planet's surface, like the Emperor's own spear. Simultaneously, the Devastator squad opened fire, heavy bolters and missile launchers unleashing destruction upon the Orc gathering. The first lance strike hit with apocalyptic force, vaporizing hundreds of greenskins instantly. Secondary explosions rippled through their crude vehicles and ammunition stores. The Devastator's fire added to the carnage, each missile finding clusters of orcs with unerring accuracy. For a moment, Tiberius allowed himself to believe the threat might be neutralized in a single, overwhelming strike. Then the dust cleared. A figure hovered above the impact zone, surrounded by a sphere of blue energy that had somehow withstood the full fury of an orbital bombardment. The Xenos called Vegeta looked directly toward the ultramarine position, despite the considerable distance and the concealment the ridge provided. "Impossible," Sergeant Atreus whispered. "Dracos, analysis," Tiberius demanded. The Techmarine's instruments whirred as he conducted rapid scans. The energy field surrounding the target appears similar to a void shield, but generated without any detectable technology. It absorbed or deflected the entire lance strike. Below Vegeta, the surviving orcs were reorganizing with surprising speed, forming battle lines facing the ultramarine position. The Xenos gestured, and the greenskin horde began advancing toward the ridge. "All units, engage," Tiberius commanded. "Focus fire on the Xenos leader." The ultramarines opened fire as one, bolters and heavy weapons concentrating on the hovering figure. Explosions bloomed around Vegeta as bolt shells detonated against his energy field, but he continued forward, apparently unharmed. "Your weapons are nothing to me." Vegeta's voice carried across the battlefield with unnatural clarity. "But you warriors interest me. You move with discipline, purpose." He descended to the ground, the blue aura fading. "Perhaps you will provide a worthier challenge than these green creatures." "Blasphemy against the Emperor will not be tolerated," Xenos, Chaplain Octavius called out, his skull helm amplifying his voice. "Your existence is an affront to humanity. Prepare to meet your end." Vegeta laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. "Bold words. Let us see if your strength matches them." The Saiyan Prince launched himself forward with